Arsenal have been exceptionally busy in a window which promised much but looked to be delivering very little in the start of June. But that has changed with many players coming in alongside Martin Zubimendi, of course, and Christian Norgard. But the latest name to be linked with Arsenal is Christian Mosquera, whose first name is spelt in a frustrating way, especially when you're signing another Christian in the same window. But that doesn't mean that he's not very interesting to look at. And so in today's Tactical Breakdown show, we're going to do just that. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Tactical Breakdown show. Our first one of the summer, in fact, as we look at all the players that are being linked to Arsenal and break them down in a statistical and analytical way. I'm joined by a friend of the channel who's been on many times before, looking at many players, of course, who've been linked to the club from La Liga and Spain. I'm very happy to be joined by commentator and La Liga Weekly host, John Driscoll. How you doing, mate? You good, you well?
I'm good, thank you, Tom. Yes.
Good stuff. It's been a while. Arsenal have not signed a La Liga talent in a little bit. They've been focusing on Premier League players more than anything else under Arteta. Just very quickly, obviously, you've been on the outside of things, but Arsenal missing out on another title, looking from the outside. Surely this will be their year, no?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because here we are about to discuss another centre-back to go with all the other sensible signings that Arsenal have made this summer. And I'm sure you've got people watching. They just sign a striker. Would you just sign a striker, please? Even if that's not the silver bullet, you've got to do it, haven't you? That's the thing. Because so many people are saying it. It's almost got to the point now where you think, right, you've got to sign a top striker and see whether that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they've been so close. I mean, yeah. I mean, I know Arsenal fans who, they sometimes wonder if they enjoy the suffering. I wouldn't know what to do with themselves if you won the league again. So, who knows? This year could be the one. Get the striker, get those 25, 30 goals and win everything.
The Twitter memes have been doing the rounds. In the summer where Arsenal desperately need a few forwards, they've signed a backup goalkeeper in Kepa, 2 defensive midfielders in Zubimendi and Norgard, and now are trying to sign a centre-back. It's the most Mikel Arteta thing you've ever seen. But
but they're all. If you look at them all, they all make sense, don't they? They're all good players. They're all good prices. But absolutely. And you assume, well, you know better, but you've got to be sensible about the money you pay for someone. That's the crucial thing when we get on to discussing Mosquera. All of these players, it's the bit of the conversation that, let's be honest, fans don't like to have sometimes. The answer is, would he be a good signing? Is almost always how much. Because everyone's a good signing if he's cheap and his wages are low, or no matter how good a player you are, there's a ceiling. Alexander. I thought Newcastle overpaid for Alexander Isak, I must say, when they signed him. Now 2 good years in the Premier League, and people are talking about huge amounts of money. But obviously, Arsenal looked at him. They probably had the same view as me, which is
they did.
I don't know, would it transfer into the Premier League and all? And his stats in Spain weren't good. Turns out it's really hard to score goals in Spain, and easier to score in the Premier League, which is... There you go.
Well, there you go. Well, hopefully that Mosquera is not one of those that's making it easier to score, or rather, he's making it more difficult to score in La Liga. Speaking of which, he is the player that Arsenal, of course, are linked with at the moment. I can already hear people in the background going, Tom, you've got John on the show. Why are you not talking about Rodrigo? Well, we will probably do that at some point if indeed those links strengthen. But for now, with the player much more likely to join Arsenal during this window being Mosquera, we're going to do our profile on him. So, John, just more generally, what have you made of Mosquera, a player who's kind of really jumped into the scene in the last couple of years? He's obviously been playing with the Spanish under-21 side during the Euros this summer as well. And Spain have a lot of, very exciting young players, particularly defenders. Think about the Real Madrid pair now, Dean Housen and Raul Asensio as well. But Mosquera is a player, I think, who's not really been on many people in the Premier League, at least, who's watch it week in, week out, will not know too much about.
Yeah, but essentially because he doesn't play in European football, does he? He plays He plays for Valencia. Valencia is a great club, an old club. It's been badly run, which is why players are available to be bought. So what Valencia have essentially done in the last few seasons is really make their team young. They've given young guys a go. They were genuinely in danger of going down this season. Carlos Corberán then came in, did a really good job, tightened them up, won quite a lot of games 1-0 towards the end of the season. So they survived mid-table. And so the danger from Valencia's point of view, now you look at all these good young players and you think the best of them are going to come and get picked off by richer clubs. So this is exactly the case with Mosquera now. So the thing that strikes me, it's his 21st birthday today, actually, Tom, as we speak.
Which, when I put a tweet out this morning, which was like, Arsenal close to signing 20-year-olds, I was quickly pointed out, caught out by the birthday curse. Yeah.
Yes. But what he's done is he's had 2 full seasons in La Liga, which is a remarkable thing, because it's usually La Liga. It's a relative. I know there've been these really high-profile, bright young things coming through La Liga, but I think one of the reasons it's hard to score goals in La Liga is the hugely experienced players that they have in it, and so it's rare for someone to come through and play as regularly in La Liga as Mosquera has. So he's had 2 full seasons playing as a regular first-choice centre-back. I know he can play as a right-back, but he's essentially a centre-back. Playing in La Liga, came through and made his debut. I think he was 17 when he first came. Hasn't always been easy at that club. They've struggled. I think he would be an obvious target, I would say, for example, for Barcelona, who could do with a solid, fast defender. He's young, he's experienced. When you look at him, it's his physical attributes and his defensive attributes that are probably the things that stand out. He's hard to beat. He's strong and he's fast. The rest of it will come. Is he a bit raw around the edges? Yes, he is. In truth, as a ball player for the level of football that Arsenal would be expecting from their defenders. If you're thinking of winning the Premier League, winning the Champions League, he's not going in as a first choice. Certainly as a centre back, he's not as good as Arsenal centre backs at the moment. But if he's available at a decent price, young, solid, strong, experienced. Hugely experienced for his age, then it's another. Get ready for this, Arsenal fans. It's another sensible signing that they're making.
It's interesting. Thomas Partey obviously is leaving the club this summer, and Arsenal's right-hand side of the defence. When Ben White or Timber have had issues with injuries, Partey has moved into that right-back spot at moments. And looking at Mosquera's profile, I have noticed that he's played a handful of games at right-back for Valencia. Just looking actually how many games he's played. Specifically, he's played 5 times in La Liga at right back. He's played 4 times in the Copa del Rey for Valencia at right back as well, and a few times when he was playing in the Valencia youth team there. And you mentioned obviously his pace and physicality that he's got about him. I guess that kind of profile leans itself to a centre half who can operate as a fullback if he needs to.
Yes, and that seems to be the way, doesn't it, with Arteta? And it's interesting to wonder whether with Man City's signings this year, whether they're moving away from that. The model of the last couple of years, which is the centre back as right back. Because if you look at Timber and White, again, could play centre back, couldn't they? But they do a good job, don't they? What I guess they've moved away from is the old Dani Alves model of a right back, who is essentially a winger who is just fit in. He was fit enough to get up and down, wasn't he? So he would take a defensive position, but not really be able to defend. The emphasis, I guess, is the other way around, isn't it? Is that first and foremost, is this guy a solid defender? And Mosquera very much is that. How much he would offer going forward, I guess he would be a reliable presence. Because you look at White and Timber, they offered something. They made the runs. What they weren't, in this age of everything being very well coached, they're probably making the runs that they want them to make, and they're taking up the positions that they want them to take up. Now, are they then going to produce a little bit of magic and slalom through 2 or 3 players? No, but that's probably not the brief of an attacking right back, is it? So
not at Arsenal, no.
Yeah. So does he have the physical attributes to get up and down? Is he able to follow the instructions? Yes. So could I imagine him playing as a right back for Arsenal? Yeah, very much.
You mentioned his raw pass, and just having a look at some of the statistics that we do have available. I did notice that he doesn't mind a long pass. When you look at kind of this area, 68.1% of long passes completed, and that sits him in the 82nd percentile of defenders in the top 5 European leagues, which is pretty high. But having watched a fair few clips of him the last 24 hours since the links have really emerged in this story came out, it is obvious that, passing, while confident and happy to try and attempt them, it's still an area of his game that needs to be refined. And I guess if there's a club that you're going to do that at, Arsenal's a pretty good club to refine that ability. But when you're obviously comparing him to two arguably of the best passing centre-backs in the game in Saliba and Gabriel, there is a big gap that he's got to make up.
Yeah, and that's fair enough, isn't it? His status within the squad obviously wouldn't be what it is at Valencia. He's a regular pick. They put a lot of responsibility on him for a young man, and obviously then at Arsenal he wouldn't be doing that, would he? He'd be coming through, but who knows with injuries? Of course, he has to be good enough to play, doesn't he? He's not some 18-year-old that you're getting, and we'll stick him in the under-21s for a couple of years and not see him. This guy's got to be good enough to play. Yeah, So his passing will have to get better, but there's no reason why. There's no reason why it shouldn't. He's a player who has developed, carries the ball well. There's room for improvement in his game. He is a little bit rough around the edges, and like I said at the very beginning, you're always going back to, therefore, what are we paying for him?
Absolutely. I mean, what I think is standing out, and want to be one of the key reasons why Arsenal have been so impressed, is the defensive aspects of his game. He's a very accurate tackler. He doesn't commit many fouls. He's 6th in the 96th percentile for fouls committed, only 0.38 fouls per match, according to that. And then ball recoveries, 5.15 ball recoveries per 90, sits him in the 92nd percentile of defenders in Europe's top 5 leagues. Percentage of dribblers tackled, 93rd percentile, with 77.5% of those attempted challenges proving successful as well. So that physically he's quite impressive. And there was also this post from Data MB on social media, which of Europe's top 5 leagues for players of 20 years and younger, he ranks first for shots blocked. He ranks first for possessions won minus lost. He's second for defensive duels won, second for possessions won, second for passes completed, which, even though kind of we were talking about the rawness of his game, still a good statistic there to give you that foundation. Forward passes completed second, defensive duels won third, and interceptions he's third amongst 5 divisions of a lot of divisions, of course, that use plenty of young players at that senior level. So those stats, I think, are obviously where, if Andrea Berta and the scouts at Arsenal have been looking in particular at what aspects of metrics are the reason to sign a player, it's going to be in this area.
Yeah, and one thing to bear in mind with that Data MB stat there, you do need to be comparing that to how many other under-20s are playing regularly for centre-back in these leagues. But that's a good thing from Mosquera's point of view, you could argue, isn't it? Because the answer, I wouldn't have thought many. I know Pau Kubasi was playing regularly for Barca at 17, 18.
Housen, of course. Yeah, for Bournemouth, yeah.
But again, he's just moved for, 55 million?
Yeah.
So, and that was a buyout clause. So you're talking a lot of money for a young defender with this level of experience, and therefore, and those stats do, they're not made up stats; they speak for themselves. He is a rock solid defender. He's a terrific player with rawness around the edges, definitely. But that's the stats there are of a player much older and more experienced than he is. Like I say, it's the difference. We tend to use age and experience as if they're the same thing. He's young and experienced, this fella. That's what he is. He's a seasoned player.
Yeah. You've got nearly 100 appearances in a league at 21 years of age.
Yeah, in a top league. There's only really the Premier League that you'd say is a tougher league. It's a tough league to play in La Liga, and he has played regularly in a team that has had its ups and downs and has had to been forced into making a lot of changes. And the stats are good. He's a solid player with loads of potential.
Well, that was going to be my next question: is if you could provide some context for listeners around the club that he's played for, Valencia, because younger listeners will probably not think too much of Valencia, but for those of more of a storied interest in La Liga, will know that Valencia were one of the best teams in Spain for many years, and obviously recently, and we know about the ownership issues that they've had and the spending issues they've had that have contributed to where they are. But what is it like as a defender playing for 2025 Valencia these days?
So it's been, what a story Valencia has been. Not long ago, certainly within my working time as a commentator on La Liga, that Valencia fans were moaning because Unai Emery could only get them to third behind Real Madrid and Barcelona, and they finished third 3 consecutive seasons. They moan bitterly about, it's quite a fan base, passionate but never happy, They moaned bitterly about the previous ownership regime. Then Peter Lim came in. You'll know Peter Lim from Salford and from Gary Neville's mates and the class of '92 and all of this. He's done a disastrous job. It's now something of a joke meme, isn't it? That Gary Neville went there as the coach and was instantly out of his depth. He replaced, funnily enough, the man he replaced, everybody, Nuno Espirito Santo, who they were in the Champions League, who were literally in the Champions League when they appointed Gary Neville. He then initially threw a load of money on it, players such as João Cancelo, who they paid a reasonable amount of money for, made some good signings. They struggled because of bad managerial appointments. The fans protested. Peter Lim withdrew his money. And then you've been in for years now in this weird kind of limbo where Valencia, where he won't put any money in. He never goes there. The fans hate him with a passion. Mestalla, the stadium, is a lovely old stadium, but it's crumbling. They started building this new stadium on the other side of town that was then mothballed. And now they're going to finally, years and years later, they're starting to rebuild the stadium. But you've got this really young team that just can't get going because they lose players. They never sign anyone for any kind of decent money. So there are signs, there are good signs, all the good young players they've got, and they finished the season really strongly. So they need the money. Now, Mosquera is a year away from being out of contract. So I imagine that they're terrific young player though he is, they're probably keen to sell him, is the truth of it. Because if they get, what's that saying? 19
million euros.
Million euros.
Discussions are,
because they're getting nothing. Well, they'll get compensation because he came through the ranks. So they're getting not a lot a year from now. So it's a club that's they're in a mess. It's a huge club with huge potential. But it's clear he would move. I think I looked at it before we started talking. I think he's on 36,000 euros a week, which is lower than any Arsenal player.
Yeah.
So the personal terms, I imagine, were quite easy. It's quite easy to give the guy a pay rise.
Yeah.
And I guess it just fits the profile, doesn't it? They're probably looking at Arsenal's injuries and thinking we could do with another one who can play a couple of positions along the back. There's no point in signing someone who's 30. Let's get ourselves a kid who's, like, as we say, 21 today, but with all this experience. So it doesn't even strike me as a massive gamble. The drawback is if he doesn't play. Obviously, then that's a setback for his career. That's the main stumbling block is him actually getting into the team. But bear in mind, I mean, what's Quansah gone for? 35 million something? Yeah. And so look at the difference in price. And you think, right, so Mosquera, give him a couple of years in the Premier League. Even if you sell him, you're selling him for a lot more than 90 million euros.
Yeah, just on the Valencia thing as well, I was looking at kind of their league finishes with, Mosquera's only been for the last couple of seasons, but there's a bit of the Man United kind of feel about it. Not obviously Valencia were winning as many titles as Man United were in England, but just the purgatorial state of where they've been, 2019, 29th, following season 13th, 9th, 16th, 9th. And before that, they won a Copa del Rey in 2018-19, finished fourth a couple of times. But that followed another kind of period of being out in the wilderness of 12 finishes, 12th, 8th, 5th, So Mosquera and other young players who have come through recently, you think that this is the bedrock to help build. Obviously, you mentioned the stadium that's going to cost them a huge sum of money. It will be one of the biggest stadiums, I think, in Spain if it's complete. There's always the big if when it comes to Valencia, if and when it's completed. And for Mosquera, I think that obviously being around other young players, that would have been beneficial for him. And obviously Arsenal moving to a club like that where you've got other young players, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Ethan Nwaneri have obviously come through into the team this season. Miles playing in the back four this season. And Saliba already having played so many games as a youngster as well, coming through sub 20 years of age and then breaking into the team in his 20s and establishing himself. And he's going to be the player, of course, that Mosquera is really going to be competing with to try and get minutes for. And Arsenal fans will be, smart enough to recognise that as a young right side defender, if Saliba is to leave in the future, Arsenal are kind of in a way looking to cover themselves early by having a young understudy to him, that if the worst case scenario happens, they might have already been able to identify a player that's got the potential to to play in that position in the future. So there is some future-proofing going on with Arsenal. They'll also be concerned about his injury record. Well, I'm very happy to tell you that he hasn't suffered one, which is obviously a nice one. It's always nice when you look on Transfermarkt's page about the injury history of a player and it just says no entries available, which is the best type of entry for an injury record. But overall, just to kind of come to kind of a rounded close around Mosquera, John, I get the sense from listening to you and looking at the stats and having viewed him for the last 24, 40 hours or so that this is for what looks to be potentially as low as 16, 17 million pounds, a very shrewd bit of business by Arsenal.
Yeah, it's a sensible deal. If is my summary, Tom, of he's a young lad with great physical attributes, great potential, huge experience for his age, a bit of versatility. He's mainly a centre-back, in truth, and his main attributes are defensive. But they've obviously found a player that fits the profile of what they want. He's available at a good price. It seems a sensible move. And I know it's not exciting. Kids aren't getting Mosquera on the back of their shirts, are they?
I beg to differ, John. I'm straight down the armoury to get that.
Everyone's waiting for the €100 million striker who's going to score 40 goals. And obviously that's not this fella. But sensibly building your squad. That's you've got to do that if you want to have sustained success. And that's what he's part of.
Can you say anything that will deter me from thinking this is another Gabriel Paulista signing? Because that was where my mind went as soon as this link emerged. And that's lazy of me, but I couldn't help it.
Well, he's a more sensible person. He's not nice. so that's yeah. No, I mean, if you want negatives, he hasn't played in another country yet. Yeah. He isn't the slickest, the finished article yet. So they're in the debit column. Yeah. And I suppose you would also say if this is so £16 million that then stops Arsenal getting the striker that they really want over the line because they find themselves 10, 15 million short, then you might think, well, hang on, was there not someone that we could have brought through our academy to have done this? Sure. So they're the downsides of it. It is real money, and we're talking because we're English, we're talking about this being a bargain. In most countries, including Spain, it's still quite a lot of money to pay for a player if you're not, literally, it's only a couple of clubs play that kind of money for players, aren't there? So there are the potential downsides. My main fear is if he doesn't play, then it stops his development.
Yes.
But yeah, he's been in Spain under 21s. He could play for Colombia, so Spain, in a sense, need to sign him up and get him playing for the national team competitively. No, it's a sensible bit of business. It's not exciting. I would do it if I was Arsenal. My like I say, the reservation is you do have to work. You have to look at the whole piece, don't you, and make sure that they're not spending money that would stop them getting the real signing that everybody wants, which is that.
Which I don't get the feeling they are. And Andrea Berta obviously is leading Arsenal's recruitment this summer, having left Atletico Madrid. Of course, you'll know plenty about their forays into the transfer market over the last decade or so. Some mad signings, some very impressive signings and some very less so impressive signings. But he's having let's say at the moment, Andrea Berta's stock is quite high, I think, amongst Arsenal fans, having seen potentially as many as 4 signings come in before the end of June, which is quite Atletico Madrid, actually. Just the scattergun approach to transfer signing players. But it is those marquee ones. From the sounds of it, this is very much an opportunity in the market that Arsenal have moved for at a very good price. With him only having a year left on his deal, had he had, say, as we were talking about off air before we came on, 3 or 4 years left, it would have been a much more expensive deal for any club, including Arsenal. There's been other links to Real Madrid, to RB Leipzig, and to Bayern Munich have all had an interest in Mosquera as well, which is, it shows how much that he's kind of impressed on that scene, and he's caught the eye of plenty of top-level scouts across Europe. So if it does happen, it does seem like it's heading in that direction, that Arsenal have landed a good player. Just before I let you go, John, I'm not sure if we will do a dedicated Martin Zubimendi breakdown, because obviously it's been a deal that's been in the works for a very, very long time. We may do, but Mosquera is joining a team which could be adding a fair few both La Liga or Spanish kind of linked players, with Kepa, of course, coming in as a goalkeeper, Zubimendi joining as well. And who knows, maybe a Rodrigo in the future. But Zubimendi is one, of course, that if Mosquera plays, will be linking up very closely with playing just in front of that back four. That deal, for me, is a wondrous signing for us. I mean, we talk about this not being an exciting signing. Zubimendi, for me, is an exciting deal. Would you agree?
Exciting is a good question.
That doesn't fill me with confidence, John.
No, he's a terrific player, Zubimendi, but he's not. But he's your metronome who plays quite deep in the pitch, isn't he? He'll get the ball from centre backs. He'll take the ball from anybody at any point. He's one of these players, the modern player, who is willing to take the ball under any kind of pressure, which is something that they coach kids a lot now. And Zubimendi is that generation of Spanish player who, pass it to me, whatever. I don't care who's around me. And he uses the ball sensibly. Interestingly, in recent months, I've noted he has been making more forward runs. It's interesting because Declan Rice was a player, wasn't he? Where when we first saw him, he played deep on the pitch, and now he makes all the. Now he's charging up and down, isn't he? And he's become a box to box player. I can't see Zubimendi turning into that. He's not the physical specimen that Declan Rice is. So I guess you'd call it. He's a deep playmaker, and a hugely intelligent player. So what he isn't is he's not scoring you 10, 15 goals.
Yeah.
What he's doing is helping you dominate games. So if it depends how exciting you think that is.
Well, John, you're underestimating, as an Arsenal fan who's been experiencing Mikel Arteta's football, exciting to us is great defending. and deep playmaking is something that we've had drilled into us as the fulcrum of modern day football these days. So when you're bringing in a new deep line and playmaker, it's good. But the goal he scored, obviously, for Spain in the Nations League, I think is an example of that kind of foraying forwards that he's begun to do. Whether or not that happens at Arsenal will remain to be seen. I think that with Partey going, Arteta will want a player that does just kind of sit and shield that back four, but more so it's not the defending he needs to do, it's the expression, it's the progression of his passing and linking the defence and the transitions into the forward areas that I think is why obviously they've signed him. And I think he's, of the players in his positions, of the Pavottis, if you will, or Trivellas, if you like, he is, for me, the best that they could have got on the market this summer.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think and you see that by all the clubs that looked at him. I mean, Rodri's done such a good job, hasn't he? And he's literally the guy you have to try and get back to play for Spain, which he literally did in the final, didn't he, of the Euros, because he came on for him in that game. So it's all intelligence with Zubimendi. He's not a brilliant. He's not the athlete that Thomas Partey is, for example. But he uses the ball. He'll help you dominate games, and that's obviously what Arteta wants him for. So he is that player. What I want people to do is not think that he's going to come in. I know it's journalists as well. Not come in, not put him in your fantasy league team because he's not going to get many fantasy league points, for example. Yeah. And he's not going to get loads of assists and loads of goals, and he's not going to be bombing into the penalty area and all of these things. He's going to be available for the ball, receiving the ball, and making sure the ball gets in a better place, and and the ball comes away from him in better condition that it goes into him. That's what Zubimendi is. Yeah,
he's an accentuator, not a deliverer of the goals. But yeah, I think that he is going to have a really positive impact on Arsenal next season. And I hope come the end of 25-26 that we're talking about him in terms that have levelled Arsenal up in terms of their play. And I think he's got the ability to do that. John, thank you so much, mate, for your time. Really appreciate it. Always an absolute pleasure to catch up and speak with you. Tell people where they can find you, and make sure you give La Liga Weekly a shout out that's going to be kicking off again for the new campaign.
Yeah, so La Liga Weekly with Terry Gibson, who knows more about Spanish football than anybody. He works in it, commentates on it, scouts it, and everything else. So yeah, he's away on holiday at the moment, so we haven't done many recently, but we'll be picking them up again soon and having a look and look at teams of the season. And the good news is Mosquera was in lots of people's teams of the season that we got sent through as well. So he's a terrific young player. Indeed, and I've seen that your book's been restocked as well. Yes. Get it kicked. Give that a shout out. Yeah, that's going to make me a whole pound. I think. That's how I think at one point, seriously point about this. I think at one point I got through and it said I got 18p for a book. So I was thinking, okay. quite a lot of work.
Yeah. It's almost like trying to sell books on Spotify these days. It's like what it is. It's just how authors and content creators and artists get paid these days. But yeah, you can, of course, go over to John's page on X at Driscoll FC. You can see all the details, of course, about his book, which, of course, features the very impressive Bukayo Saka on the cover. So there's a little Arsenal link there for people if they need to gain the attention of that. But yeah, give that a read, give that a look, and make sure you go and listen to La Liga Weekly when it kicks off again for next season very soon. John, thank you again for your time. Really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Do drop a like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff that you're used to. We'll be bringing you tactical breakdowns, of course, throughout the summer. You may see John again, of course, if indeed more La Liga talent is looking likely to join the club. We've got other players that we do need to talk about, Kepa and Christian Norgard. But we hope, of course, as we've been alluding to throughout the show, that mythical centre-forward is something that we also will be talking about, be that Benjamin Sesko or Victor Gyökeres, the two that it seems most likely to sign. So, yes, I'll see you again, as always, every morning at 8 a.m. Do make sure that you share this around to anybody that needs to learn a little bit more about Christian Mosquera. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy, respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.